So, as everybody can see, today I'm wearing one of my black Edmonton Oilers jerseys, largely in mourning for how this season has gone so far. It's a month into this season. This team has won twice. That is just not good enough. And there's nobody who can be in denial about that. You know, it is said that you can't make the playoffs in October. And that's obviously true, but you can miss the playoffs in October. And if this wasn't a team that was capable of going on long, strong runs, as we've seen over the past few seasons, I would think that this is a team that by now has missed the playoffs. I don't think it's necessarily true of this team. I think that this is a team that has what it takes to come back and not only make the playoffs, but even potentially win the Pacific Division. You know, before you get too down on where the Edmonton Oilers are at this stage of the division, at this stage of the season right now, you have to keep in mind that they've only played 3 of their divisional games so far. So that means that pretty much all of those points are right there on the board. This is a team that can make a comeback and win this division, maybe even win this conference. Yeah, but obviously they do have to start now. It doesn't really look to me like Jay Woodcroft has any answers, and that's maybe what is the most frustrating thing about this. You know, when the Edmonton Oilers fired Dave Tippett a couple years ago, I was pretty vocal about believing that it was a pretty bad move. I believed then that it was the wrong move for them to make, and I kind of feel like right now I would really hate to think that what's going on the ice with this team is vindication of that. I really hope that this team can pull it together and prove me wrong. So last night I was scrolling through Facebook and I came across something that really just disgusted me. There's no other word for it. I was absolutely disgusted when I saw this, and I don't even necessarily remember entirely exactly what publication it was this was from. It was from one of these little clickbait, hockey news sites that have sprung up over the last couple of years. I think that it might have been one calling itself Over the Boards. But they're all the same. I mean, just clickbait, not really reporting anything new, just repeating something that somebody else reported, and then that's it. They don't add any additional insight. They don't add any additional commentary. They're really just trying to ride other people's coattails. And it's something that I don't respect. But something that I respect even less is when you come across these sites and they're posting their content on all sorts of different Facebook groups, and whoever it was that was posting this content for this website, they were posting a story about Jack Campbell being demoted to the AHL. You know, that's happened here over the last couple of days. The Edmonton Oilers placed him on waivers for the purpose of assignment to the Bakersfield Condors, which really just tells you absolutely everything that you need to hear about exactly how fair this season has been for Jack Campbell. I mean, he's actually statistically the better of the 2 goaltenders. You know, Stuart Skinner's numbers are actually quite a bit worse than what Jack Campbell's are, but Jack Campbell is a guy who's less likely to be taken off of waivers. So he's the guy that goes down to the AHL for a little while. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but I'm going to kind of get on with what I was talking about in the first place. So I believe it was Over the Boards. They were posting their content on some Facebook group, and their caption that they put on their post was "NHL career over," and it was all caps, and there was like 3 exclamation points. And these guys apparently are just really pleased with themselves to be announcing the end, what they believe to be the end of an NHL player's career in the NHL. And every single one of these guys is the same. You know, it's always some putz who doesn't even know how to lace a pair of skates, let alone could they ever actually themselves play in this league. Yeah, but they scraped together enough money, to put together some 2-bit website. Looks like it costs them about 50 cents on GoDaddy. Well, I suppose that I do know the answer to that question. It's just some little pissant, writing for what are basically the bottom feeders of the online, citizen journalist space, whatever you want to call it, of the hockey world. Fine, whatever. I actually got to be honest with you. I don't really consider myself to be all that much better than that. I'm just some jackass sitting here in Muskasippi Park with a $40 microphone and a $20 tripod and a cell phone. That's all my operation is. I'm no big deal myself. Now, that being said, I am going to share with you a story, from quite a long time ago. Actually, it's almost embarrassing to admit how long ago this story is, but I'm going to share this story with you because I want everybody to understand exactly how serious this thing is, and it's not something to be, jumping on Facebook and writing these triumphal posts about the end of a career. Because I actually have been there in the room, when a career ended. Maybe in the room is not the right word. It's a that's a metaphor. But I was there and I did see it happening. So all the way back in about 2006, I was doing a little bit of work here and there for some actual access media organizing. Nothing too big. Really just like a small, smaller community newspaper, the Lloydminster Meridian Booster. But I was doing some work for them. I was interviewing a few Lloydminster area NHL players as they happened to come through Edmonton. I was in Edmonton. I was well positioned to be doing this kind of stuff. And so, that year I interviewed Wade Redden about going to the Olympics. And then when Corey Cross came through town with the Detroit Red Wings, I went and I talked to Corey Cross about what his experience had been that year. And that season for him had been, a hell of a roller coaster, to say the absolute least. He had started that season out with the Edmonton Oilers, and he was the whipping boy of that season. I've kind of spoken to this before. It seems like every single year there's at least a portion of the Edmonton Oilers fan base that has a whipping boy. A guy that they, regardless of whatever might actually be happening on the ice, they just get fed shit, by these particular fans, game in, game out, no matter what. And their goal is basically to get rid of this player. This year it's Jack Campbell. That particular year it was Corey Cross. And eventually they did get their wish that year. Corey Cross was traded from the Edmonton Oilers that year. They traded him to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And in exchange for that, they got back Dick Tarnstrom. Which, by the way, is actually not a bad trade at all. That was not a bad trade. They got back a guy that, he didn't really log a lot of minutes going into the playoffs. But leading up to the playoffs, Dick Tarnstrom was actually a pretty quality depth defenseman for that 05-06 club that came within a goal of winning the Stanley Cup that year. That's a pretty decent trade. So Corey Cross, he went off and he joined the Pittsburgh Penguins. And of course that was Sidney Crosby's big first year in the league, his rookie season. So pretty exciting to be able to join a club like that, even if they're not going to make the playoffs, which the Penguins didn't. But he got to spend a little bit of time in the room with Sidney Crosby in that first year. And so I went and I talked to him about that. And of course, what it was like to be traded to the Detroit Red Wings, a team that a lot of people thought was going to go on and win the Stanley Cup that year. And as it turns out, that team didn't win the Stanley Cup. They didn't even win the first round of the playoffs. And I was maybe the only person that I knew that managed to call that series at exactly 6 games. And there were other people that were saying, no, it's going to be Detroit in 4. No, it's going to be Detroit in 5. I did know one person who said it was going to be Edmonton in 7. But I was the one who said, hey, Edmonton in 6 games. Because I had actually taken a close look and seen that, hey, the Oilers won the season series that year. They beat the Red Wings twice in regulation. And then the Red Wings beat them twice in overtime. So basically, the Edmonton Oilers, they got 6 points out of that series that year. Detroit only got 4. It was a really hard sell, and I did get to... I actually, tell you the truth, I didn't really see many of those people again that particular summer. So no, I didn't really get to rub that in anybody's faces that year. Just too bad. That would have been fun. But yeah, anyhow. So back to what we were talking about before, talking about Corey Cross. And so I was sitting there and I was interviewing him about what his season had been like. And I was trying to get onto the question of what was next. And he just kind of kept avoiding the question. Kind of kept evading the question, dodging it. And I, gave it a few good tries. Didn't really get anywhere with it. And that was about the time when I kind of realized that, Corey Cross was a guy that was sitting there talking to a guy that was acknowledging that his NHL career was coming to an end. That was not the story that I had set out to get. But at the end of the day, that was the story that I had to write. And I think that if you had ever had to have been in the room, in the locker room, with a guy that his career is winding down and he knows it, and he's still giving everything that he has right up until the end, but he knows that his career is coming to an end, I think that you would be a lot more reluctant to rub somebody else's face in it, or to go around crowing about it online. And I think maybe that's what grossed me out about this thing more than absolutely anything else. This little prick doesn't know what the fuck it is that he's talking about when he's talking about the end of somebody's career. And Jack Campbell is still a pretty young guy, and I don't think that he has reached the end of his career. I think that Jack Campbell is going to make a strong comeback. I think that he's going to go down to the minors for a little while. He's going to get his confidence back. And hopefully, while he's in the minors, the Edmonton Oilers will make some changes at the goaltending coaching position, because let's face it, Dustin Schwartz is not getting this job done. These goaltenders do not seem to be getting any better. Under his tenure, they seem to be getting worse. You look at what Stuart Skinner has done in this league for the last couple of seasons, and he does not look like the same person. He looks an awful lot like the Stuart Skinner of about 3 seasons ago, the guy that had that disastrous game against Ottawa, but the Edmonton Oilers outscored some very bad goaltending in that particular game. That was uncharacteristic of Stuart Skinner. And the offense that we're seeing out of this team right now, let's just say, very uncharacteristic of what this club has been like. And so what's going on here? How can Stuart Skinner be this much worse this year than he was last year? And I think that the only thing that you can really look at is the coaching. And I think that when you look at Jack Campbell, I think you have to say the same thing. Especially when you look at his performance in the preseason compared to now. Jack Campbell right now looks like a completely different guy than what he looked like in the preseason. Now, admittedly, in the preseason, you're not facing down rosters of NHL regulars all the time. There's rookies in those lineups, but there are some NHL regulars. To look that good in the preseason is a very good sign for a goaltender. And now, after a few weeks of working with Dustin Schwartz, all of that has gone away. So it would be a very interesting question that really just occurs to me now. Who were the coaches that Jack Campbell was working with in the offseason? Maybe we need to bring in one of them. Or maybe what we need to do is, bring in Mike Smith, a guy who I said quite a long time ago, he's a natural leader. And I think as a natural on-ice leader, I think that he would make a pretty natural coach. And as an added bonus, I think that bringing Mike Smith on board to hopefully help right these goaltenders and get this season back on track would be a fantastic opportunity, for some of these little prick fans out there to shake hands with the mistake that they made when they wrote him off and declared that that his career was over. Right before he went on a tear that carried this club into the playoffs and got him named an NHL star. And I did encounter quite a few people that absolutely refused to ever even acknowledge that or own up to that. To admit that they were wrong. People that were still declaring the end of his career when he had just been named the 3rd star of the entire league in I believe it was the month of March that year. think it might be a good opportunity for some of those people who are probably, I would say almost certainly, in amongst the crowd that are declaring Jack Campbell's career to be over, sure would be a good opportunity for those fucking idiots to humble themselves a little bit. And it does kind of bring me to the last thing that I really need to talk about, I think, and that is that I do need to acknowledge that, I ate a little bit of shit at certain points when I was standing up for Mike Smith and saying that he was going to turn things around. And like I said before, the people that were doing that were kind of trying to serve that meal, they never did come around and admit that they were wrong. And I've got a feeling that now I'm probably going to go through the same thing with Jack Campbell. I'm probably going to be one of the only people standing up for him. And I'm going to eat a little bit of shit while I'm waiting for things to turn around. And then when things do turn around, like I expect them to, the people trying to serve that meal, they're not going to come forward to eat themselves. And you know what? I don't care. That's fine. I don't care. You know what? I will always be the person that is standing up for these players when I think that they're being treated unfairly. The way that I think Jack Campbell is being treated pretty fucking unfairly right now. So you know what? To stand up for these players, yeah, I'll eat a little bit of shit. Because my ego isn't what matters here. The betterment of this hockey club, whatever I can do with my, with my little bitty cannon, with my crappy $20 tripod and my cell phone, sitting here in Muskogee Park in November when it's starting to get to be cold as shit. I got to admit, I'm probably not going to do very much to make this hockey club any better. But standing up for the players and eating a little bit of shit is something that I can do to try to make this hockey club a little bit better. Yeah, I think that I'll do that.